quite often, a triggering event will go off in our life, sometimes in the form of something wonderful, sometimes something not so wonderful, but it is a triggering event that starts a cascade, and that cascade insists that we get real about the circumstances of our life. So to trigger is to initiate or set off an explosion. The thing that initiated an explosion in my life was that I got pregnant. I was home and bedbound. I was living with a person that sometimes was the only person I would see for months. We were not in a committed relationship. We were in a cohabitation relationship. Committed and cohabitating are not the same thing. If you think that's said from a place of judgment, please think again. I lived with this person for 7 years, and I would go down to the mattresses fighting that that was a committed relationship. It was not. And I knew it. And I chose to get pregnant by this person. We planned it. I was on such unstable footing. I was sick. I was homebound. I was often bedbound. If he walked out of my life, I do not know how I would have cared for that child, let alone myself. I was a dependent adult. And I continued to put myself in harm's way. For me, my coping behavior was online shopping. I was spending all this money on these clothes, which meant that my future was not secure, not financially because of my own coping behavior, and not because I was in a committed, non-committed relationship. And on top of that, I got pregnant. Purposely. Some other triggering events can look like this: a jail sentence, being served divorce papers, coming home and finding your spouse has moved out, your family and friends staging an intervention. For some other people, something wonderful happened. Listen, when I saw those 2 lines on that stick, that pregnancy test stick, it felt wonderful. But it changed something in that it set off an explosion, and that explosion was the veil of lie coming down. My alternate life could not stand in the face of this triggering event. So I want you to write down in the blank that I'm going to provide the answer to this sentence. Something wonderful, horrible, life-changing happened. That is your triggering event. Now, for me, my stone cold truth when I had to come face to face with my coping behaviors, because I got pregnant, this suddenly created this wait a second, what am I doing? The triggering event had me look backwards at all the things that I was doing, the need that I had, how I was trying to fill it, the alternate life that I had created, the impact of that alternate life, how it broke trust with my partner and broke trust within myself, the consequences of all that, how I was setting myself up for a future that was on unstable footing in so many ways. But that triggering event dropped the veil. And when that veil fell, I saw the deeper truth, not the stone cold truth, the deeper truth, the truth underneath the stone. And that was this. Although I was pregnant, the man I was with wasn't committed to me. And that realization set off an explosion in my life and forced me to create different circumstances on more solid ground. What is the deeper truth in your life? First, identify what was the triggering event. My triggering event was that I got pregnant, but it set off an explosion that when the dust settled, I was able to see the deeper truth, which was that my partner wasn't a partner at all. And I was on unbelievably unsteady ground. Some of it, most of it, I had created myself. What was the triggering event? What is the deeper truth of your life? Write it down. And listen, my belief is that you are to take personal agency over your life and responsibility for your life. Now, that may include a therapist, but you have to be the one that picks up your life and walks forward into a new future. The only thing that's going to heal you is you and God. And if you don't want to talk about God just yet, that's totally fine. When I was at this stage of my life, trust me, I was living with someone. There was no God in my life. There was no moral authority that I was running my decisions by. Not by a long shot. So don't think you're going to have judgment for any of this. But at some point in the future, we're going to have to talk about your relationship with God, because self-awareness and spirituality intersect. That is the deepest truth. That is the truth that sits at the core. But for now, we're going to look at the deeper truth in your life. Okay. The circumstances you're in can have existed for a very long time before they fully come to light. So for me, I was in that relationship for 7 years. For 7 years, I was living a lie about needing certainty in my life and being the most uncertain in my circumstances that one can imagine. And that went on for 7 years. So listen, you came by it honestly, okay? You've often created these circumstances because you want the core needs so badly, and you believe with all your heart that the circumstance you're in is giving you or will give you this core need now or sometime in the future, that you persist. Like year after year after year after year, I was living in this relationship and in this alternate reality because I just believed if I got healthy, if I was able to go outside, if I got pregnant, if I was better, if I loved him more, then the circumstance that I was in would blossom into everything I ever wanted and desired. So I kept going. I settled for a little human connection over no human connection. I settled for a little significance for no significance. I settled for a little bit of love for what I perceived to be no love at all. So don't shame yourself because you've done this thing. You've created this house of cards. There's no shame in this. But it is time to look at it in the face and unveil the deeper truth of your life and your circumstances so that that house of cards can finally come down. I need you now to update that impact formula. So for those of you who did part 1, you already know what it is. Go back to wherever you put it in your notes and you're going to fill in the blanks. I'm going to read my impact formula that I had to update with my deeper truth. And here's what it is. My core need. I need to have a sense of certainty and significance in my intimate relationship, and I'm not getting it. So it wasn't just about needing connection. Of course, we all need connection, but it was something deeper for me. I was in that relationship in order to have a sense of certainty in an unbelievably uncertain world. I did not know if I was going to live or die in the immediate. And so I tried to root my certainty in a relationship that was uncertain. So I need to have a sense of certainty and significance in my intimate relationship, and I'm not getting it. You have to put that trailer on there. You have to end with, and I'm not getting it. You have to see that you have a core need, and you have to also understand you're not getting it. In order to get certainty and significance, I coped. What did you do? My living arrangement created an illusion that I'm in a committed relationship. The stone cold truth, the reality is I'm living with someone who doesn't want to marry me, and that's the antithesis of certain and the antithesis of significance. Get that? Here's the crazy thing. When you cope and when you settle for a little bit, the thing you're settling for a little bit for actually sets you up for the antithesis. The reality is when you're living and cohabitating with someone who doesn't want to be with you, you are creating a mountain of uncertainty. The only thing sure about your situation is that it's uncertain and unstable. So in this desire to take this little crumb and make it into a meal, take this little bit of certainty and turn it into this, firm foundation of certainty, was that I was actually setting up the most uncertain situation in life. That is the trap of coping by settling for a little bit. You have nothing at all. Not only that, the thing that you want so badly is so far out of reach, you don't even realize it. So the impact of the circumstance is I am now pregnant. You got to put that out there. I'm pregnant. And the consequence of showing up as someone who is willing to settle for uncertainty and insignificance in my intimate relationship is that I have broken trust with myself and with my unborn child. I had to face the fact that I purposely was bringing a life into the world, into a battleground of uncertainty, insignificance. How is that child ever going to trust me? How? And how could I ever trust myself? If in this moment, as I'm saying this, you're dealing with disappointment in yourself, disappointment in the circumstance, it felt like this moment of just a bucket of disappointment being poured over my head. I was weighted down by it, by so much disappointment. I had had such high hopes. And how had it all come to this? How had it come to this? But when I saw the canvas that said, I am made of shattered stars, and at the very same time I saw the whole, I felt a love and a commitment to that canvas. Despite its brokenness, I was going to keep this thing. It wasn't even a question. It overwhelmed me with its beauty. It overwhelmed me. And in a very strange way, I began to be overwhelmed about myself. In the short phrase, I am made of shattered stars, it told me everything I actually believed about myself at a core level. That despite the trust I had broken with others and myself and my unborn child, despite the feelings of unworthiness, somewhere deep inside, I felt worthy. It was a soft, small, quiet voice, but nonetheless, it was audible through it all. What if you are made of shattered stars? What if you are both a broken canvas, but a work of art? So that canvas arrived with a gaping hole. What left a hole in your life? How have you sustained damage? That hole removes something. That hole takes something away. For me, I named my baby Lumen, which is a derivative of the word light. I lost that pregnancy. She was no longer there. And I was left with a painting with a hole in it. The loss of that child created a hole in me. Secondarily, a new possibility opened in my life that I didn't expect. When I called the artist, I was still pregnant. And I said to him, hey, listen, I've got this canvas with a big hole in it and I don't know what to do. And when he offered to make a new one and I said, no, I wanted the one that I had gotten. I wanted not only the canvas, I wanted the hole. They went together. I didn't want another one. And when I said that to him with such conviction, and he was like, okay. And I said, but can you help me repair it? He hadn't done something like this before. He wasn't in the business of fixing people's canvases from, he was on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast. What was the plan there? But I posed the question because I believed in my heart of hearts that the canvas had to be repairable. I was convinced of it. And the new possibility that opened up when I said to this artist, can I repair it? Can you help me? Within a millisecond, he said, I think we can fix that together. And from that point forward, he created a repair kit for me and sent it in my direction with a video. And he said, call me when you get this. And I laid out the repair kit. I had watched his video and I called that artist. And in that connection, from two sides of one nation, we co-created that work of art. That was the new possibility that I, a mother who had realized that I was in an uncertain, insignificant circumstance with this giant gaping hole, with this deep brokenness in my life that went layers and layers and layers deep. I became someone different. I became a co-creator of a work of art. There's this beautiful verse in the Bible in Jeremiah 1:5, and it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. What if you had a creator? What if not when you were in the womb, I knew you. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before. And now you are out in the world living a life and you have the ability to partner and co-create with the creator of your life. You are not at effect. We're going to talk about the fall and the funk. That's coming up next.